Well, welcome to the first ever joint meeting between the Climate Action Advisory Board and CSEC Comprehensive Sustainability and Energy Committee. It's June 16th. And I believe we need to do a roll call, if I remember right, to get us started. Oh, thank you. So because we're two committees coming together, why don't I'll do CAB roll call first. And for some reason, when you're sharing your screen, I can't see anyone. So I can at least see the invite list. So let me do the CAB roll call first. So I'm Courtney Eaton, Chair, Brian Crounce. If you could just unmute and say here, that'd be great.
I had to find the mute button.
That's okay.
I am present.
Okay, great. Because I can't see you. To see John, I saw you. And
present.
Yeah, great. Warren.
I'm here.
Hi, Warren. And Paul.
Here.
I think you're on. Great. And Jake.
I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Great. All right. And then for CSEC, I'll go ahead and call roll call for you as well. And then maybe I believe we have time for introductions, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, Jerry's not here. Janet?
I'm here.
Okay. Doug Sharp?
I'm here.
Karen Gibson?
Here.
Sharon Jones?
Present.
Haney?
Present.
Okay. Bob?
Not here.
Not here. Okay. Mike McDonald?
Here.
Hi, Mike. And then Matt, are you
That's
on?
our list. We don't have to,
Okay.
Matt and Nathan are on, just
Okay.
join our meetings. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Great. So with that, I guess we didn't allow time for introduction. But I guess maybe the roll call will serve as that, and we will get to know each other a little bit as we share. Looks like John, you're off the hook, and Karen is going to serve as our clerk for tonight. Thank you again, Karen, for that. Appreciate it. With that, we'll move to approval of the meeting minutes. So for CAB, we're actually approving both the meeting minutes from April and May. If you recall, we didn't have the set from April. Were there any questions or comments on the meeting minutes from either April or May that CAB wanted to bring up?
This is Warren. I move we approve the minutes.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you. A second to that?
This is Jake. I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Jake. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right, I think that's unanimous. All right, and now we'll move to CSEC's meeting minutes. And were there any comments or questions on the meeting minutes from May for CSEC? I don't know if I'm actually qualified to call the vote for this one, because I was hoping Jerry would be on by now, but we'll just keep going.
I may move to approve the CSEC minutes.
But I think it's from April 28th. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Second, no comments.
Okay. Sharon provides the second, Janet provided the motion, and
Approve.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think that looks unanimous to me. All right, then we will approve the minutes from April. Thank you for the correction, Sharon. All right, with that business piece out of the way, we'll go back to our minutes, or our agenda for this evening. And so I'll go ahead and do my update, and if when Jerry comes, we'll maybe shift and we'll just do this on the fly sort of thing. So, again, thank you for everyone being flexible this month and allowing us to do a joint meeting. First one we've done. I'm surprised that it is, but it is. I think we will obviously get into some of the overarching initiatives that we've been working on as CAB. We'll talk about that a bit later in the meeting, but I think our biggest area of business or I guess concern has been membership, and just looking for members. We've had a few that have fallen off in the last I'll say 6 months to a year, and so our numbers went from I think 9 when I was first started on CAB to now are we at 5? I've lost the track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, so that's I think the biggest the biggest area of concern, I guess, for us is to how do we keep our momentum in with our members dwindling. So, and I think that is, if I'm not misspeaking, maybe also an area that CSEC has struggled with, but I think many town committees. I was intending to share more from the chair's breakfast. Unfortunately, they changed the time of the meeting, but didn't send out a new invite, so I missed it. So I need to actually get the recording, and I've put in a request for that, but I didn't get it before tonight's meeting. So I don't have any updates to share from that, sad to say, and hopefully I will get on the right invite. I think I'm still not. I don't know, Jake, I hope you're not on the invite because Jake was the chair before I was, but for some reason I didn't get an update. So
I'm not on that invite either.
okay, good. All right, good. Well, at least you're not getting, cluttered with that. So I don't have too much to share. Yes, Sharon, I see your hand is up.
I was just going to mention that I did, because Jerry had shared it with me, I did get the chair breakfast invite and attend. What I thought was particularly interesting that these committees might be wanting to know about, I didn't know about until the chair breakfast, is that there's a trolley plan, and maybe I see Paul shaking his head, so maybe there's others that know more about it. But that was news to me, and I also thought there's opportunities for us to work with the pollinator committee.
Okay. Can you share a little bit more about the trolley? What was spoken of there? Because it has been, I think Amanda, you shared that with us. I don't know if you shared it with both groups or not, but
all I know is what was said at the meeting was that there's a plan to do a sort of a pilot with a trolley that would go between the tourist destinations in town, and that's about all I know. But I think Amanda or Paul might know more.
Yeah, it's between the several or a handful of tourist locations and the commuter rail stops, and they're timing it so it will be at the rail stations at the same, at a good time in conjunction with the rail stops. And there's going to be drop-offs in West Concord, and it is a pilot, and this is really a good opportunity to get some numbers to apply for federal funding. So if we have good usage, then we'll have a stronger case in that grant application. And it was just approved for some funding on the select board's meeting on Monday night. And so I'm not sure if they have a start date ready, but more to come on that.
Who's the champion on that initiative?
So the Department of Land Management and Planning have been working on it. I know that Aaron Stevens has done quite a bit of work. And then Marsha Rasmussen was also at the select board meeting on Monday night.
I was just wondering if you knew whether it was just going to rotate around the more touristy sites and visitor center, and then when a train comes in, they will go to the train station, because, or whether it was just going to be once an hour when the trains come in, or whatever timing of the trains.
I haven't personally seen a detailed schedule, so I can't speak to that. And so I don't know if that's still in development or if they're going to be publishing one soon. And it is a hop on, hop off trolley, so I would imagine that they would continue to run on a cycle, but I don't know exactly how all the stops are going to pan out. And it looks like Jerry has joined us. Hi, Jerry.
Yes, I did just join. Hi, folks. I'm terribly
Yeah,
sorry
ask a question.
for the delay here, but I am dialed in via Zoom in a car. I'm not driving, but I am connected. So where are we in the meeting in terms of the agenda?
Actually, we're just at the director's update and I'm sorry, the chair's update. So it's good timing. If you could just hold for 1 minute. Andy had a question. We were talking about the trolley proposal.
Right.
And I believe, yeah, I thought I saw Andy had a question.
Sure, I'll hold.
Okay, Andy?
I'm sorry, I had no question. I had my camera off the whole time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, for some reason it chimed in as if you did, but that's okay. Anyway, so we were discussing, Sharon was actually just updating us on a little bit, and then Amanda was filling in the gaps on what, what the town is planning related to that trolley. But Jerry, did you have other topics you wanted to handle related to your update?
Well, yeah, so there were a couple things that update-wise that I wanted to mention. First of all, I wanted to give a summary update of the results of the Cooler Concord Sustainability Series. That's now completed. We had 6 events. They all went very smoothly. Attendance, to my eyes, was less than we had hoped for, but we had good engagement with the attendees. And in total, by my count, we had about 187 attendees. So that was dominated by 2 events, the keynote and the Cooler Concord Climate Festival. But overall, I think that's a reasonable number. Looking back, I can see that there were several lessons, at least for me, but I think possibly for all of us. The first is that the promotion could have been a lot better. And I can say that very directly because I was doing most of that, and I don't feel like I did a particularly good job. On the other hand, I think the fact that we had a series of events and we promoted it initially as a series meant that the opening events, particularly the keynote, had a lot of attention, but the subsequent events, didn't get much individual promotion. And I think going forward, if we were to do something like this again, it may be better to do kind of one big event, such as the original Cooler Concord Festival or the Landscaping Fair, one big event with several different focal points as opposed to a series of events. But any rate, that's my take on it. I want to thank the various CSEC members who were extremely involved and pulled off all these events beautifully. As I said earlier, they went very smoothly. A couple more updates. First, I don't know if this was mentioned already, but Amanda is moving on to another position.
We hadn't
And I
gotten
want-
there yet, Jerry, but yes.
Okay. Well, I wanted to take this opportunity to recognize all the work that Amanda has done, particularly with me. And I very much appreciate the focus and the energy. And I can only add that I'm sorry to see you go, Amanda. Thank you very much. On a related note, we will be transitioning the leadership of this committee, CSEC, going forward. Sharon Jones has graciously accepted the chair role, and we are establishing a new role, a vice chair role, and Hanny will fill that. So, this will take effect after this meeting, but I want to acknowledge their contributions and their willingness to lead. I think they'll make a great team, and this will be very good for CSEC. So I think that'll do it for my update. But those were several things I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of.
Great.
Point of order, I think we need to actually be voted on, but if anybody wants to run against us, please, let us know.
Do you want to have the election now?
Sure.
Do you want a motion? I'll make a motion to
Well,
say again.
I think Jerry froze.
I'm sorry, I was unable to hear that. Could the motion be repeated?
I'd like to make a motion that Sharon Jones be elected to the position of chair following Jerry's leadership, and Hanny to the vice chair position, which is a new position.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I saw
Anybody?
Janet raise her hand.
Okay,
She's
so,
just on mute.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. We now will vote, and we'll need to vote individually. I can't quite see everyone who's on here, but I'll go down the list as best I understand it. So Doug, your vote?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Sharon?
Yay.
Haney?
You're on mute.
Haney,
Yes.
can we hear your? Yes, okay. Janet?
Aye.
And is Michael there?
Yes, and yes.
Okay. Did I miss anybody?
Karen.
Karen.
Karen, sorry. Karen?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's unanimous.
Yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. It's unanimous. Congratulations, Sharon and Hanny. The committee is in excellent hands. Will be in excellent hands.
Great. Well, the director's update is next. So I might start, if that's all right, with Courtney and Jerry.
Go for it.
And echo on comments. Has been very great working with all of you. I've had a great experience, learned a lot, met a lot of great people who are also on the call tonight. In my time here, it was shorter than anticipated, but looking forward to what's next as well. So that I would say is a major director's update. I'll also just say that I'm planning to have a summary table of projects and who will be taking them over, and I plan to post that prior to leaving on the town's webpage where I normally post the director's updates. So if you're looking for somebody specific on a certain topic area, you'll be able to go to that and to find who you can go to chat with for specific updates on that. On the director's update, there are a few things to highlight. We did present the municipal fleet electrification study to the select board on Monday. We had a new UNH fellow join us last week. His name is Joshua. He's going to be focused on community engagement as it relates to transportation and mobility, which is good timing as we have the new trolley coming on, and we also have a new bike share and a lot of other exciting things happening. He was going to come tonight, but he did join the Transportation Advisory Committee earlier in the week. And so hopefully he'll be joining you maybe later this summer. We kicked off our hazard mitigation plan in the last week. We expanded the compost pilot project by adding another bin at each location, and then continued coordination on the middle school sustainability committee met this afternoon. And to my understanding, solar will also be discussed at the light board next week. And so a lot of things ongoing and happening here. Highlights from around town. CMLP is planning to purchase 3 Ford Lightnings on July 1st. We're working on getting some chargers installed over on Kais Road. And also 141 Kais Road is the town's second all-electric building. They just got some new air source heat pumps over the last few months, and a few more are in the pipeline. I will say on the legislative front, you should expect to see an updated to that new specialized opt-in code this summer, and public hearings to occur this summer. So that'll be an advocacy opportunity. And many of the bills that we had been following have been continued on until June 30th. And so those are still on the table, including our Home Rule Petition Act is still alive, but there's only a 2-week window and for those to be taken up for a vote. And so that is the highlights, and I'll stop my screen so we can see each other again and see if anyone has any comments or questions.
So Amanda, should we look for you on Prairie Home Companion? Is that when we're going to see you next?
I would answer if I knew what that was, Mike. So
You're sharing
I
your
guess I
age,
just
Mike.
dated myself.
You dated yourself.
Oh, it's a Minnesota classic. I'll just leave it at that.
okay.
So with those things that are continued until June 30th, what if no action is taken? Do they all just wither on the vine and have to be restarted?
Yeah, so I believe the legislative session is going to be closing. And so when that does close, the new general session would take up new bills, and they could be revamped ones from the previous session. But they would get a new number and things like that.
Does that mean the home rule petition it has to be restarted?
That's a good question, Doug. I think that it would be considered, you could resubmit if you wanted to, but you may also decide that that's not going to be, it may not move forward if it's sat there for a year already. I think they're aiming to have the larger statewide efforts be pushed forward, and that's what's holding it up.
Thanks.
Jerry and Courtney, do you want to take public questions now or wait till the end?
I think I'd prefer to wait to the end. I'm a little concerned about the various topics we have to discuss, and I want to make sure we give them plenty of time.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Looking to see, yeah, if anyone's
On
hand.
that note, we do have the next agenda topic is the Sustainability Awards Program. And Annabelle has been working hard on this and has a presentation ready and has sent out some details related to that proposal if you've had a chance to take a look at it. Annabelle, I have the slides, or you should be able to share if you would prefer that.
Yeah, I don't mind either one really. If you want to do the slides or if you want me to just share my screen, I can just share my screen. It's probably easiest. Okay. So I have been working with Amanda on coming up with a proposal for Concord Sustainability Awards. And here's just a little presentation giving an overview of what those awards might look like. And so what are Town Sustainability Awards? So Town Sustainability Awards are awards that will be given out to community members, community organizations, local businesses, accolading their work in sustainability and kind of giving them some recognition for the work that they've been doing. And they are beneficial because they can help encourage people and businesses and organizations in the town to continue keeping up their great work in sustainability and kind of give a little bit of well-deserved recognition for the work that they've been doing. And it's kind of just a feel-good way to get the community involved in sustainability efforts and recognize that sustainability efforts take place at both the town and governmental level, but also on the community level and individual level as well. And so my question for you guys are, do you have any goals or visions or ideas about an awards program and maybe something you would like to accomplish through the program at all? Any thoughts generally? If not, that's totally okay. We can continue on. Yeah.
So this is Jerry. I have a couple comments. As a committee, we have not yet discussed this.
Okay.
But in general, I think that these could be a very positive thing, a relatively low cost thing for the town. I think one of the questions that I have in my mind about these awards are who is the target? Is it individuals, citizens, or groups or businesses? It seems to me that there's actually various options here, depending on what we want to target and what we want to achieve with them.
Yeah.
So that's my 1.5 cents.
Yeah. So I can get to that that question about targeting in a little bit. I have a slide on that as well. So
great.
I can get to that. So we can start with a few case studies for similar towns. Golden, Colorado is the one case study that has the most similar population to Concord, and they have 4 categories: a student award, an individual award, a business, and a community group award. So 4 awards given out in each of those categories, and that's what I was thinking would work best for Concord as well. But obviously we can always start with a narrower, only doing a couple of categories or whatever you see fit. They do an online nomination form. They want the nominations and the awards to be about a specific project or initiative as well as the overall contribution to sustainability in the town. So, you need to have a specific project that you have been working on to be nominated and to be considered for this award. And they have 6 different achievement categories. And so like on their nomination form, they would like, I'll explain it later on, but it's kind of just a way to categorize these nominations and to make sure that they are contributing to the specific area of sustainability that mean the most to the town. So, their achievement areas are green building, education and awareness, renewable energy, solid waste, vehicle travel, and water conservation. And their sustainability advisory board chooses the winners. And so another one, pretty similar, they have more specific categories, slightly less broad for each of the categories. And they, similar to Golden, Colorado, they must show achievement in one of the achievement areas. Panel scores based on the evaluation criteria, and the winners are selected by a panel of residents, staff, and citizens. So that's slightly different. As well, there's an online nomination form. Eau Claire, Wisconsin has lots of award categories, but an award is not given in each category every year. So that's a way to do it as well, but I thought that was a little too broad for Concord, especially just starting out. And their winners are also selected by their Sustainability Advisory Committee. And so now we will get into my recommendations for Concord, and as well as seek some input from you guys. So just as a general outline, I'm thinking that Concord would have 4 award categories of an individual, a student, a community group, and a business. So 4 awards, and chosen based on how a nominated project or initiative and how that specifically works towards improvements in one of the chosen achievement areas, which I will get into, slide 12, as well as overall contributions to building a more sustainable Concord. And, general eligibility, you must be a Concord resident or located, or business organization located in Concord. Yes, so my initial recommendation is 4 awards for each of those categories. Future potential changes, you could add or take away award categories, make them more specific or more broad. And I'd love, any of your thoughts on this. I know you mentioned targeting. I know it might be difficult starting out to target such a diverse different categories of people in the community. So maybe starting off with just business awards in community groups, or just individuals, whichever you guys see fit, really. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like
Mhm.
the goal of individual, student, community group, and business. I think as we start to think about implementation, we'd have to think of that as feasible, at least the first couple of years. Sometimes it takes a couple of years at least, or more, for something like this to take off. But I like, if we can figure out how to award these, what sorts of criteria and things like that. I like the idea of, both it being an individual contribution as well as, group contribution, and making those 2 things possible.
Yeah.
I love the idea of a student contribution as a way to, to highlight that, and to get more, something that we've been talking about a bit on CAB, get more youth student involvement in a couple, our organizations, or our boards and committees. There are lots of hands up, so I'm going to stop and make sure that others get a chance to give their thoughts to you too. I don't know who was first. I'll start with Janet.
I was just wondering what form the awards might take, and is it going to be a little plaque at a community event? And then what are your thoughts of how the awards would actually happen and what?
I have a slide on that a little bit farther on, so I can hit on that a little bit later, if that's okay.
Okay, great. Warren? A question or comment? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. I hate to be a wet blanket, and I think this is a fine idea, but it's not like, at least in CAB, that I feel our committee is making so much progress that we have a lot of extra disposable time to put into an awards program, as opposed to actually making improvements for the town. Now, I'm sure that's going to be a minority view, but I really think before we just march ahead with this, we should have a real discussion as to whether we have the bandwidth to do something like this.
That's fair. No, that's a fair comment. Oh, Warren, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, I think, Warren's statement probably merits some thinking about. But could this award go to a town organization? Or even a state or federal organization? Or to a senator or a congressman?
That's a great question. It depends on what you see fit, really. Maybe keeping it the more local, the better. So if that congressman was, had made actual changes that really impacted Concord, then maybe that would be good. Or a town organization would be great. I think it depends on numbers, how many people get nominated, and really which projects actually impacted the town and stuff. So that's something that you guys can decide when you move farther along in this process. You can specify that.
Paul, what was your reasoning or thinking there?
Well, I was thinking, first of all, town organization, town department.
Oh, town department.
Yeah, town department. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also thinking like, say some elected official is doing a particularly good job in trying to get us a net zero emission by 2050 or something else. This might be a way to, give him more recognition for his good work. And that work would not only impact Concord, but also, in fact, the world. And if you get an award from Concord, so it just, gives them a little more energy to keep doing that. It gives them recognition and validation.
Yeah. John, what are your thoughts?
Well, first, I think it would be good to, discuss Warren's point. I've had some experience with awards programs, and my experience was they worked well for a while, but after a while you recognize people who basically are already doing things, and you start cycling around and they start getting multiple awards. And so, to that, it would be good to also think about what's the purpose of the award? Is it simply just to make, if we're just giving out awards to people already doing something, that's nice. Is it worth the effort? I'm not sure. But if it's to encourage, particular activities, and I think these awards, it's not enough incentive to really spur anyone to do something that they weren't going to do already. But if it's coupled with other programs that say are trying to increase the use of renewable energy or promote energy efficiency or whatnot, then it's a way to reinforce, those programs. So I think we're thinking about that coupling. And then I think to Paul's point, I think I've found that having recognition for government employees is useful. Obviously probably don't want to exclude the sustainability director, but you know, if you're in public works or the school department and you're going above and beyond to do something on sustainability, then I think it helps. And I also found with these awards that they help people within their organizations, you know, maybe not so much within the community, but say they're in you know, a lot of businesses have targets, and sometimes these awards help certain employees meet those targets and helps push things along, you know, organization within their organizations. And so I think it's worth thinking about what it is we want to try to get out of the awards if we're going to do them.
And that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jerry, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So just real quickly, I want to emphasize the point that I think Warren made initially. I know particularly CAB has a lot on the plate right now. And so we need to be careful about planning something if we don't have the resources. Now, having said that, this is something CSEC could possibly take up in whole or in part. So I just want to mention that. Also, comments by question by John and Paul also resonated with me quite a bit. In short, this seems like a bigger program that I sort of had imagined, not that I had imagined it in terribly much detail, but to have 4 different awards sort of annually, to me, that waters down to a certain extent the impact of any individual award. Certainly it makes sense. I like the idea of acknowledging students. I particularly like the idea of acknowledging businesses. But I think we need to be clear, as was shown on the opening slides, we need to be clear about what our goals are with the awards. And I think that would possibly drive the answers to some of these questions.
Yeah, all very, very good points. And this, I just did some research, put this together as, just a jumping off point for you guys to start thinking about those and start thinking about those motivations and goals. And then you can take what you want from this or simply leave it all behind or take out pieces that you would like and kind of modify it to create something that will work for you guys and work for your goals. And if nobody has any other thoughts, I will continue on. So the achievement areas, this would help with nominating and criteria. They would initiatives should fall into one of these achievement categories, and it gives judges a way to evaluate and differentiate the projects based on their meeting of specific achievement areas. And it also would provide a prompt for the nominees to further explain their project and provide more details in the nomination form. And so here are the achievement areas that I have come up with and discussed with Amanda that we think might be worthwhile. Obviously, this is all just, an idea, but, ideally one of the winning projects would fall into one of these categories and specifically work towards furthering goals in one of these achievement areas for Concord. And yeah, so that, and then for the selection committee, as you guys spoke about, I know you all have a lot to do. It doesn't have to be everybody on the committee. It could also be the awards could be the kind of thing that maybe the sustainability director and the people in the sustainability area of the town take on primarily. And then the selection committee it's just the selection committee that are voluntary members. Maybe to give some bipartisanship, just cooperation, kind of teamwork throughout the different areas, and future opportunities we could partner with the Green Team or other entities in the town to help promote or evaluate and select the winners. And I know you guys already spoke on this, so you might have some more thoughts, or you might have already said kind of your related thoughts to that. That is else. Okay, yes.
I'd like to suggest this award program could do a good job of getting us outside of the typical group of sustainability people in Concord. So reaching out to businesses that are doing the right thing, reaching out to residents that aren't very active in town committees that are doing the right thing, and showcasing them and creating that engagement with groups that are not sustainability focused, I think could be a good value for this award.
Mhm.
I think I would agree with that. I actually started an awards program in a volunteer organization, and I will note, Warren, that it does take a fair bit of work to do such a thing. And we were just awarding one award. So, I think that's very wise to keep that in mind, that it does require bandwidth. And I think it's worth having a conversation with both of our committees to understand if we, have that bandwidth. And, but I do think what I've seen from that particular example was the opportunity to elevate the conversation of, sustainability and climate work to a group that wouldn't necessarily engage with it. And it gives very concrete examples of what people are doing. Both it's a feel good for the people that are doing the work and that are doing the right thing and making those choices, sometimes tough choices. But then it sort of elevates that and shows it to a broader community. In this case, it would be the town. If done right, if done and advertised well, so that, is it going to move the needle for everyone, or get all people to make different decisions? Probably not, but I think it will encourage us, more folks who maybe wouldn't make those decisions on their own to at least think about it, to maybe engage with it, maybe reach out and find out more information. So once it's established, I think it actually ends up being a lighter lift with benefit. Now, I think, John, your point is interesting, that sometimes they run their course and then you end up just searching for nominees from people that have already been awarded 5 times in the past or whatever. So I think at that point you have to then reevaluate and say, is this stale? Is it actually serving its purpose? But I think it can, in its infancy and maybe toddlerhood, if you will, encourage the conversation to move forward and reach a broader group. So I think it's given us some good things to think about. Annabelle, I don't want to cut you off though. Do you have more slides?
I have a few more slides.
Okay,
but
go for it.
I don't want to take up too much of all of your time. So timeline and logistical details. This part is very, these are just some ideas, not super concrete, but to lighten it could be as a part of Earth Day celebrations. You could present the event, the awards as part of an Earth Day event, a part of Earth Day celebrations, submissions closed mid-March, all that. But also that might be a bit much with all of the other celebrations. So it could be maybe a part of something, the Town Sustainability Day in October. I think that's a thing, or in February as its own event. And forget if I have this in another slide, it could just be a little, whatever those little award things are that are often given out, and just that. And then the event could be a little banquet type thing. I was thinking that it'd be really a great opportunity for people to share their projects with the other winners. And it could be a part of a town meeting or something of the sort, where there's, members of the public and members of the town, town government people And they can kind of share and present their work with everyone. And but the actual event is pretty loose, and it just depends on what logistically works with people and what, you know, logistically people can put on as an event if it wants to be standalone or a part of something else. Yeah, questions?
Warren, you want to chime in? Oh, you're on mute again.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's
I
okay.
can't figure out how these things work. So again, I'm not opposed to this idea in principle. It's strictly in terms of bandwidth.
Yeah.
And some of the things I've heard people saying actually increase the amount of time and effort involved with it rather than reduce it. What I mean by that, if it's strictly going to be a small committee receives nominations and they judge the nominations based on who has objectively, or as close as you can get to objectively, done the most to advance sustainability in Concord, you have some measure of that. If you start getting involved in things like who hasn't been recognized and is under the radar screen, and maybe if getting the award will help advance their standing in the community, you have to have a justification for why did you give the award to that person than to the person who actually has accomplished more. That's not to say you can't do that, but it just is going to take more thought and time to figure it out. And if we go ahead with it, I would think it needs to be on the basis that there's a subcommittee set up of people who are willing to put time into this beyond what they're already doing to accomplish the goals of CSEC and CAB.
No, absolutely.
So I might just offer that I think Annabelle's got 2 slides left. So maybe she could present those last 2, and then we can use the discussion time that we have in the end, towards the end of the agenda, that's talking about CAB and CSEC and moving forward, and maybe initiatives that you could do together or separately, but support one another's initiatives. Maybe we can discuss this idea a bit more. And then Annabelle would have our last 2 logistical slides, and then everybody will have all of the information.
Sounds good. I concur with that.
Yes. So moving on to the next slide, this is again on the award ceremony. You know, it could be a separate guest, could be part of town meeting, banquet, or it could be less than a banquet. You know, could be more informal, less formal, more formal. You know, kind of goes with whatever people are willing to put the effort into planning and what they have the time to put the effort into planning. You know, just a little plaque, little way to share their projects. And then promotion, you know, just through newsletters, social media, physical bulletins, you know, around town, in the schools. We could tell, you know, if you want to do the student award, you could tell teachers about it. And you know, like Wicked Local and the Patch, you know, promoting it as well to get as many nominations as possible. And this is the last slide. This is just the mock-up nomination form. I can just quickly share. Let's see. Can you guys see this form that I'm sharing? Okay. You know, this is just a mock-up form. Pretty simple. You know, name of nominee, address. You know, they can select the achievement areas. There's a more in the accompanying notes to the presentation that you guys all have access to. There's, you know, more examples and more details for each of the achievement areas that you know, could be listed here, and a description and some further questions to help with judging and to help give more details about each of the projects and each of the nominees. And those ideas were also taken from, we were inspired by one of the other towns' nomination forms as well for those projects, questions and criterias. And, you know, for DEI, we can include that and get some other areas of Concord, some other people in Concord incorporated as well, and into the environmental justice aspect of things, if that is of interest, you know, incorporate that. And then, you know, the scope of the project, additional documents, photos or graphics, you know, just get as many details about each nomination as possible. And that is all I have at the project.
Thanks, Annabelle. I appreciate your presentation. Looking at the time, I know Mike and Janet, you both had your hand up, and I'm sure I want to make sure you get to share, but I do wonder if we should kind of move through the agenda, and would you mind saving the questions for later, unless it's a very simple, short, just clarification.
Very, very quick. I just love the idea of the town meeting. I think it ritualizes it. I think if we have, it really gives some recognition at a very high town level, and it's done every year. Everybody will be there. I just want to say, I was a little lukewarm on the idea, but the town meeting, for me, I think makes this work a little bit better.
Okay. Yeah, I have to say, Mike, I was kind of leaning towards that as well. It felt like it's a place that is, you know, fairly easy in our current systems, I guess. But Janet, a quick comment or want to save for discussion later? You're on mute. That's okay.
Quick comments.
Okay.
Number one, I mean, you have the 4 categories, which are great, but not everyone needs to happen every year. Second, I just wanted to mention that Amanda got some of the CSAC members to write blogs, which were put on the sustainability page on heat pump installations and electric car driving, that kind of thing. Might be a great thing to do together with the awardees.
Oh, fun. Oh, yeah, I like that. That's a great idea. Yeah, maybe make a note of that, Annabelle, in your presentation, because I imagine that we're going to have more conversation on this before, you know, anything moves forward. And, you know, I know in particular, it might also be something that we want to pick up again once, you know, Amanda, your, you know, replacement for director is selected as well, because it's going to be something that will fall on that person's shoulders to lead. So making sure that the director that's coming in is also on board with that being a priority for them. Now, we can talk about different ways to implement something like this too, but so as Amanda suggested, I think it was a good comment to sort of table more conversation on this until later in the meeting and pick it back up, just so that we have a chance to touch on some of the other agenda items. So I think next up is, Amanda, you were going to give a quick overview of status on one of the particular areas of the Sustainable Concord plan, as sort of a template for, you know, the way this could be shared more regularly.
Yeah, so one of the things that Courtney, Jerry, and I discussed was that if the joint meetings continued, one way to report out progress on Sustainable Concord without having a 2-hour-long presentation might be able to do it by the 5 different elements: built environment, energy, mobility, natural resources, and preparedness. So we thought we would start with the built environment because it felt like a lot of the initiatives that CAB and CSEC had been working on jointly were in this area. To remind folks, Sustainable Concord is set up in a way that we have overarching goals that have priority actions underneath of them. And then those priority actions have implementation steps. In some cases, the implementation steps really are stepwise and you would walk through them 1 through 3. In other cases, they are dependent on one another or interrelated, or maybe even sometimes cyclical and iterative. And so you'll see that a little bit in the presentation. If this is too small for folks, this was in the meeting packet sent out. And so if you want to open it up on your own computer and kind of explore it on your own, that should be available to you. The first priority action is to increase electrification and improve energy efficiency of residential buildings. And the 3 implementation steps here were really to create and provide new priority pathways for residents to do electrification and energy efficiency, promoting that and doing some community engagement. And then the 3rd implementation step was to explore a potential for the time of sale energy assessment. Each of these steps has moved forward in different ways since 2020. So over the last 2 years. And I've got some details here about some of the programs that CMLP has been implementing on the increasing of their incentives. In addition, the town now having access to Mass Save, the heating and cooling coaches. I also put in here CAB's priority this year, putting together the memo for the low to no zero interest loans. And a few other details. The plan next steps really for this, I know CMLP has been looking at creating a participating weatherization contractor list, which is similar to their participating list that they have for air source heat pumps and some other home improvements. They were looking to offer the intensive home decarbonization assessments. This is going to be delayed than originally anticipated. We've partnered with Abode Energy Management, and they're doing some more testing on their protocol that they put together. It wasn't quite ready for launch, or the testing didn't go quite as according to plan. So that is delayed, but it's still on the radar. Continue to look at the loan program with CMLP. And continue to increase awareness on Mass Save. And I think that's a really big one because I think a lot of Concord residents are used to the idea that they aren't eligible for Mass Save rebates. And since that changed this year, I think we can continue to promote that. Under the engagement piece, CSEC would be familiar with a lot of the initiatives under this, the creation of your Sustainable Home Now materials, the outreach, the series that you just completed. And the continuation of those programs would be to move forward. And then I know that Jake's been working on the time of sale assessments. We met a few weeks ago on that, and I have some follow-up to do before my departure on that as well. And so I think those are moving forward. The next priority action item was to improve energy performance of commercial buildings. Earlier in the year, CAB had discussed making the design of an energy performance disclosure a priority for the year. And at the time, it was tabled because this was something that was being pursued at the state level. We can continue to monitor that. But because this hasn't moved forward, perhaps in the following year, CAB would see this as a priority to pursue this at the local level. This is one of those actions where the implementation steps in some ways do relate back to that first step. So when it says expand the pilot program for the disclosure and things of that nature, we can't really implement that one when we haven't done the step 1 before it. But overall, I can say that we have done some engagement with the business community. We certainly could do more. We have a bit on our website. And again, the expansion of the rebates to the commercial buildings, I think, is a win. And I know that CMLP is also looking at commercial EV charging rate structures in the short term as well. And so the commercial sector does, I think, need a little bit more support and outreach than maybe we're currently doing, and that might be a growth area for us. The next priority step is to set progressive sustainability standards for new municipal buildings and schools and develop a phased plan for deep energy retrofits on existing buildings. So when I arrived, MAPC had completed a review of our existing audits and energy usage of the town's top energy users, the buildings, I should say, and provided some recommendations. I've also been recently working with the facility staff to put together a list of priority buildings primed for heating and cooling electrification in the near term. And so we do have a list of those that we're ready to move forward. And all of this really funnels into an existing list of projects that Kate Hanley had put together for the Green Communities Grant process. And I've been speaking with the facilities department, and they'll have also set the opportunity over to the school. Mass Save does have a customized technical assistance program. There's a 50% cost share. And so we might be able to utilize this as we've done in the past for some of our buildings to do more of a deep dive on the assessments for different buildings. The next one is to make a public pledge to lead by example and achieve high sustainability standards in all new construction of town facilities. There isn't a policy related to this. As many of you know, the middle school is on track to be net zero ready. And I think in addition to this, Article 31 sort of supported this, and that all new construction would be net zero. And so again, as that works out at the state level, we'll need to consider what our local options are and what we'd like to move forward. And the next step here looks at developing that capital improvement plan for the town and has a few other sub-steps to them. So just wanted to remind folks that we do have a report on town-owned solar for solar on town properties and some payback periods on that. That I'm sure will be discussed and analyzed as we also continue to explore the outcome of Article 38 from this past town meeting. So the next step here is, we've only got 2 left, so hang in there, is to establish policies and incentives for new development to achieve high standards for sustainability, resilience, and design. So this is very similar to the step before, or the priority before, but to look at private development, residential and commercial. So again, Article 31 would have been a huge part of that. And we've also been discussing at CAB how to support the planning board and planning division. They have been given some technical assistance from MAPC for the subdivision regulations and site plan review. And just, you know, Courtney and John, I said when they're ready for some sustainability support to reach out to the 2 of you, and potentially you can bring that to the board to help them work through some of that. And some of this is also the advocacy piece. And I think we have been able to stay on top of that this past year. The town manager, as select board, the sustainability division have testified. We've sent letters, we've signed petitions to support the home rule petition, but also to comment on the state building code. And these efforts will continue into the future. And the last priority action in the built environment was really focused on waste and reducing the waste diversion rate by 30%. We do have an inventory done every year on our waste as part of the regulatory framework passed down from the state. The state has also updated some of their recent regulations. For example, this year in November, there will be a ban on mattress disposal. And they also will require commercial entities to reduce the amount of organics that are going into the waste stream by half. So right now, I believe they can put in a 1 ton, anyone that is putting in 1 ton of organic waste per week will need to reduce that to a ½ ton. And so that'll take some implementation on the town's behalf to educate folks, communicate this change, and to also enforce it. We had the pilot program for the food compost drop off this year. Mentioned in the director's update that we added an additional bin to each of the locations. We have 175 people that filled out the form, but I went through today and there are about 10 duplicates, so we're at about 165. So we do have pretty good participation there. And I've been recently working with a few volunteers who are going to monitor the program, submit forms each week so we can track the fullness of the bins, which has a double benefit of we'll know when we're getting full and we need to add more capacity, but we'll also know how much we're diverting because we know they're 48-gallon bins. And so we will have a better estimate of how much compost the program is actually diverting from the landfill. So that's kind of the qualitative side of things. On the quantitative side, I've got some numbers here. If you're a numbers person, you can kind of dig into these. And then I've also got additional numbers because some of the numbers above, as you can see, are blank and they're just a little bit harder to track or to calculate in-house, take quite a bit more time. And so with that, I will stop and see if anyone has any questions.
I think before specifics, just I guess a curiosity whether a quicker update like this is useful, beneficial, helpful. We've been sort of talking for a while about how best to report out on some of the progress, and Amanda's been intent on tracking that since she arrived, and I think has been doing a good job of collecting the data, but then what to do with that and how to report out. So I guess I would be curious from the two groups whether a format like this is useful, or you felt was useful. Yeah, John.
Yeah, I think it's useful to see a summary of all the activity. There's obviously a lot going on, and it speaks well that there's so much going on, even though we don't have that many resources to work with. I think in the longer run, I think we'll need to have some kind of metrics that are more geared toward how we're doing on actually achieving our goals. For instance, something and harp on, like if we basically need to electrify all our buildings, right? And so we have stronger programs through CMLP now that provide incentives and technical assistance, but I don't know how many buildings are in Concord actually, but for purpose of discussion, assume there are 2,000 buildings in Concord, so they're all, and assuming that not very many of them are all electric, that means we need to be retrofitting 70 buildings every year between now and 2050, I think, to meet our goals. And so, I don't think we have any idea where we are with that, right? So we need to develop some means to see that dashboard of progress, to see how far along we actually are.
Mike, I think your hand was next.
Hi. Boy, that was a lot to take in. There is a lot going on. I agree. So perhaps you can help me frame the everything that was just presented going forward. Is the idea to take each one of those items? I understand these are what we're working on, some CSEC, some CAB, some sustainability, some DPW, the various groups in the town. is part of the goal to tease out which projects CAB might be working on, which CSEC might be working on, which we might be working on as a team, and then we get into the details, or was the presentation more to say, hey, this is what you're going to do? I'm just trying to understand where in the process, the items that were laid out, where we fit into this going forward. Probably not making much sense, but there was a lot of information there, and I'm just not quite sure what we're supposed to do with it, what I'm supposed to do with it.
That's a good question. So I don't know if I have the answer, but I think that is something that we've wrestled with on CAB. Maybe in the last year or so, and we sort of did that soul searching, if you will, committee searching process where we kind of looked at all the however many initiatives, 20 some, I can't remember, that are encapsulated under the 5 different categories. And, we kind of took it and whittled it down to, a few. I think we're working on about 4 right now, which is only, it's Amanda shared more than that tonight, just in the one category, right? So I do think it's a good question, Mike, and it's kind of how are we interacting with Sustainable Concord? And I think it might be one for us to wrestle with as a group. And, we can share from CAB, we can share our experience, but I think it might be something, a broader discussion to be had there. So just so I don't miss folks, I think Sharon, you had yours up next.
Well, I agree with what both John and Michael said, but I did want to answer John's question in part. I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but we have the CSEC and Brad Hubbard Nelson, a former member in particular, have looked at those numbers of how many buildings there are in Concord. And you're right that we're behind, but we are at least aware of how far behind we are and are working on it.
We have the numbers that we
have the numbers.
Good. That's good.
At least have the information.
Okay, good. Jake?
Yeah, I was just gonna add to John's point. I think there's about 5,400 single family homes in Concord. And again, I don't know how many are electric, probably not that many, but so I guess I would second, I think just first coming back to this larger point and this information share, I think to what Courtney was saying earlier, we talked a lot in CAB about how do we prioritize against the climate action plan and pick projects where we feel like we have the expertise, we have some bandwidth to attack it, and it's going to be impactful. And I think we also talked a lot about what overlaps with CSEC and how can we complement one another. And I know, Jerry, you've continued those conversations with Courtney and Amanda. And I think my understanding of this is it's trying to kind of pull together those elements of here are the programs that CSEC is working on, here are the programs that CAB are working on under these larger themes. And here's some updates on how things are going, what progress has been made by both of those groups, as well as what's happening in other areas of the town. So it is a lot, but I think that concept of trying to understand how we're working together and the progress we're able to make along with other groups in town can be helpful. And I agree with John that we also need to understand and have a good set of metrics that are showing us what, are we driving the impacts we like to see over time? And do we have the baseline information we need? Like, for example, we like a subgroup of us has been talking about how to, how to be most effective in the incentive programs and built environment. And I think we're still missing kind of information and, maybe not being as targeted as we could be in reaching out to homeowners and targeting them with, incentives and trying to, again, get ahead of this issue of people, maybe switching from oil to gas instead of going to electrification, and really trying to get ahead of that. So I agree. There's a lot going on. I don't know. I don't have an answer as to what the best way to approach it, but I think that was the concept. And I like that idea of bringing this together and keeping us aligned. So that was what I wanted to share.
Jerry?
Yeah, so Jake, your comments are very much in sync with my perspective. I've been one who has commented a number of times that I don't have there's things going on I'm not aware of. There's information, I don't know what the status is. And it's not because of any person or particular thing that's happening or not happening. It's just there's so much. So as I think Amanda mentioned, Courtney and I and Amanda talked about this, of how do we get this information out? And is it better to have a focused report, one topic at a time, or do it all at once? And I think we can see, based on the presentation here tonight, that just doing one topic at a time is a lot. But the key point here is, I think we all need to have a sense of where things are as we go about our business of trying to figure out what do we do next and how well is what we're doing now working. So that's the essence of it. Thank you.
No, I am sensing, I'm looking at the time, it's 8 o'clock. We have the meeting scheduled till 8:30. I sense that we have probably 2 hours left on the agenda in reality, if we wanted to give everything its full time. Given that, I want to make sure that, I think ultimately what I'm sensing is that having combined meetings more regularly, not all the time, not every month, and not combining the two necessarily, but having a joint meeting regularly might be really beneficial, so that we can, work together to answer that question that Mike had, which I think is important. How are we interacting and moving the dial on sustainable Concord initiatives along? And are we doing that, most effectively or not at all, not. And so, so with that, I think we maybe move into our current priorities, but I see Amanda has her hand up, so I want to pause for a moment.
Yeah, I think this maybe is a good segue to the next two agenda items. So I guess I've been thinking about this as well, and I mentioned this to Sharon the other day too, that I think there's some ongoing work that could be supportive of one another. So Jake, when we had been talking about the home energy scores and how that, depending on what avenue went forward, might need a lot of public engagement support. And could CAB do the policy side of that, and CSEC help with the public engagement piece of that? And that would sort of alleviate some of this strain on CAB by also utilizing CSEC charge. And really that felt like to me as a good example of how those two entities could come together. And I can see the possibility of that in a lot of the CAB priorities, but also as a way to become more familiar with what town departments are doing. I think we have a really good idea of say what the CMLP rebates look like, and CSEC's done a great job of doing events and outreach on that. But maybe there are some other ways to support on the other elements, like the mobility, natural resources, and preparedness. And maybe we've cycled through those in past years. You had the sustainable landscaping fair, and maybe it is a topic area per year, per half year. But those were just some opportunities that I had thought of, or examples of how the committees could work together.
I think that's good insight. So yeah, just again, in the interest of time, I do feel like, we're just scratching the surface on several of these things that we've talked about tonight, which I think encourages me that, again, we could have more joint discussions in the future. So with that, we were each going to do a quick share, and I'll say quick again because of time, a quick share on our initiative. So as I mentioned, CAB, I'll go first, but then I'll give Jerry time. So I'll try to keep mine to 5-ish minutes here. And then maybe we can, just in our discussion time, ask questions or comment. How about, so we spent a good portion of last summer, if I remember right, kind of walking through Sustainable Concord and identifying those initiatives that were sort of in CAB's champion court, if you will, and things that we felt we could input into, and we had expertise on to some degree, or ways that we could interact with it. And I started with a list of several. I think it was even more than 10, but not the full list of 20 some. And then through lots of conversation and voting process, even narrowed that down to 4. And I don't actually have them in front of me right the moment, but and each CAB member has sort of taken the lead or champion that. So for instance, Warren has been looking into, and I think Amanda mentioned a lot of these in her overview earlier. So Warren has been looking into financing opportunities for electrification, and to add to what MassSave is providing, things that CMLP could consider as opportunities for either a loan program or variety of different financing options. And he's written this great memo that he presented to us at our last meeting. So that is actually in existence. This is fantastic. So, and that's an initiative we continue to want to make progress on. I think we mentioned Jake has been working on a home energy score. I think you call it point of sale, and so that people residents can better understand their energy use. So that's another energy focused initiative. John and Paul have been focused more on the resiliency side and thinking about how we bring resiliency planning into the town, particularly in the form of a vulnerability assessment. And there was a grant that we applied for that Amanda took the lead on, to look at vulnerability of our water systems, which would then couple with the hazard mitigation planning that's happening. So that's the third initiative. And then the fourth is related to planning policy. And that one I've actually been somewhat involved with, but probably more Amanda than me at this point, just because of the way that's been going. But thinking about how to bring sustainable decision-making into our planning and plan review process, and land development. So those are sort of the 4 that we identified as sort of top priority. We recognize, as Warren mentioned, there's only a few of us and we have limited bandwidth. What initiatives could we move the needle on and that we felt had a big benefit, as well as, what were good matches for our expertise as well. And so those are the 4 that we've sort of committed to making progress on over the next year. I don't recall off the top of my head when our year started. I think it was actually when Amanda started in her position as sustainability director, we sort of kicked things off. So that would be coming up on, was that October, Amanda? I'm forgetting, September, October. So, and then I think our intent in the fall will be to reevaluate sort of where we're at and, whether we continue to push forward those 4 or we, realign and think about what's next. So that's what CAB has been working on. Jerry, do you want to give a quick overview before we open to broader discussion for CSEC?
Yeah, thank you. I think the story for CSEC right now is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We have been focused on the sustainability series for months. And it was pretty much 100% sort of thing. And we just finished that. So looking ahead, there of course are a variety of possibilities. We have not yet discussed those as a committee, which I think is kind of natural just after finishing up a big effort. But it's a good time to consider, what could we do? So it's from my perspective, and I think the other CSEC members should chime in if they see things a little differently. But from my perspective, we're at the tail end of one cycle, and we're about to begin the next cycle. And so while I don't have much, if anything, to concretely report on in terms of a work plan going ahead, this is a good opportunity for CAB members as well as CSEC members to speak up and say, hey, how about XYZ? Could you help? Now, I will also point out sort of that I've been offline connected or not connected, contacted about 2 other topics that folks would, or at least a couple of individuals would like to see CSEC get involved with. One is the potential for electric school bus grants. I don't know how much this is known, that I just found out about this a couple of days ago, but there's an EPA program that will provide a substantial amount of funds for a substantial number of buses. So I was approached to ask for help from CSEC on this. I'm not sure what that help looks like. I'm not sure if this is within, strictly speaking, CSEC's charter, but that's one possibility. The second thing, which probably most of you are familiar with, is the CPS boiler replacement issues. So, a month ago, we had a meeting with Superintendent Hunter, who explained, what the whole situation was to CSEC. It was a great meeting. We got a lot of information. And CPS and CCHS changed their plans in line with a proposed amendment, which was to this year, not replace the Alcott boiler, but instead do a more comprehensive study on what the options might be, not just for Alcott, but for the other schools. So this is something that folks have approached me about, of how can CSEC help on this? So again, these are not topics that have been discussed within CSEC yet, but they are possibilities that I'm bringing up because we do have a blank sheet of paper to work with at the moment.
Great. Doug,
are you raising your hand? You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Okay, how's that?
You're good.
We hear you.
We hear you.
I just wanted to say that one of the things that I've noticed happening in the last year, partly under Jerry's tutelage and work with us, is it seems as if a number of things like the boiler situation over at the middle school or the lower school, Alcott, those kinds of situations have come up where people in the community that know about CSEC have come to CSEC and asked to be represented by a committee. So in a way, we're like a watchdog committee a little bit, or taking on that kind of role. And these things, when they come up, are very important to the communities that they're involved in. And it's hard to project what they are going to be ahead of time, but I would say between now and December next fall, there'll be a number of situations like that that continue to come up. And it would, to me, it would be unfortunate if CSEC didn't have the bandwidth to address them as they come up. And we have had sort of a mixture of pre-planned agenda and then this open form agenda, which comes up as things are needed in the community. Another area that we had loosely committed to was our relationship to the library as being a point of dissemination and engagement with the community. And that hopefully will be extended in the fall. And when the library buildings weren't even finished, so they weren't usable for sustainability type work. But I think in the fall next year, there's a significant opportunity to couple with them in some ways that we haven't, to do more engagement work.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Doug, which leads to one other comment I want to make. This isn't strictly speaking part of a work plan, but it is sort of an engagement, piece of engagement plan. I think we as CSEC need to work more closely with other town or school committees. Not at least as a liaison, if not more than that. And I think that would be a way of sort of anticipating some of these things that come up. We would be better informed, but we could also lend our expertise to these committees, whether it's the library or it's the school sustainability committee. So for example, in the school sustainability committee, I was wholly unaware there was one. But as a result of the meeting with Superintendent Hunter, I'm now part of that. And I've attended, I think they've had one meeting since then, I've attended that. And my intent is to continue to attend, not as a watchdog, but as an active member, so that hopefully, again, the ideas and the expertise that CSEC has can be injected into the work of those committees. So that's something I haven't really talked about much with the committee directly. A year ago or 9 months ago, we did talk about the idea of trying to get more liaisons involved, but we didn't, for whatever reason, we didn't follow up too much on that. But I think going ahead, that could be an important part of what CSEC does.
Well, other thoughts, I guess, about how our two groups, based on what you've heard, and so you can ask questions, I guess, on individual initiatives, but I guess mainly, initial thoughts, because I don't think we're going to be able to have a full conversation on this, just again, in the interest of time, but how the two groups could work together, could complement one another. Sharon?
Actually, I was going to follow up with
That's fine.
what Jerry was saying before you asked that question. Is I think working with other groups in town is very important. I think with the sustainability series, we got a lot of comments about, oh, is it, we're doing this once a year, and like the landscaping fair, are we going to do that again? And I know it's a lot of work, but perhaps if we can form partnerships with other organizations, so that we're not really trying to do all the heavy lifting for everything, but we're working as part of a group that does, with the light plant to do heat pumps and EVs, and with the pollinator group to do gardening, and with,
Yeah.
Others out.
other group, mothers out front to do certain things.
Right.
Maybe we could have I mean, we did 6 events this year, which is huge. And there's some concern that we sort of watered ourselves down by doing that. But if we have the right partnerships, maybe we can have 4 or 5 or 6 events a year.
Yeah, we've also talked about the need for liaison or cross-pollination between other town boards and committees, but it's come down to a bandwidth issue. We don't have it. And I don't, maybe it's something that tag teaming might be more feasible. Mike, I think you had your hand up first.
Yep. Hi, again, sorry to take up so much time, but I did just want to add,
okay.
I wanted to add one thing on the partnering, and perhaps this could help with the bandwidth issue also. The new 3-year plan that was approved by the Department of Public Utilities, as everyone knows, has a very big focus on electrification and heat pumps. And the responsible provider for those particular projects has changed a little bit from business as usual. So if the building is served by natural gas, the gas provider has a much larger role and is providing some very significant incentives. And I've talked to Jerry about this too. So, as part of the conversation, I think what might help is when we're talking about stakeholders, it's not just limited to CMLP. I have heard some discussion about including Mass Save, but the point I'm trying to make is that there's been a bit of a paradigm shift, and it's just not all CMLP at this point, and it's not all electric incentives. The majority of the significant incentives, at least for natural gas, are going to be provided by the gas providers, or in this case, it would be National Grid. So, and there are many ways to get National Grid or the gas provider more involved. And I can see some opportunities for that. And the middle school is a perfect example. Alcott's another great example. And a couple other examples have come up in the past. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I think it would be beneficial to start thinking in those terms, that it's more than CMLP. This is a bit of a paradigm shift in how all of this is being incentivized. And the scoping studies are free of charge. And I know the gas provider is more than willing to do that. And there's a big desire to move forward with this, both at the state level, the IOU level, and CMLP. So I just wanted to bring that into the discussion, that the role of that gas provider could be more substantial than it has been in the past.
As an aside to Mike's comment, partly with Mike's help, National Grid was invited and attended the heat pump event we had.
Doug, I think you had your hand up.
Well, just a comment I wanted to make about the relationship between CAB and CSEC. I think that just having this meeting tonight and being made more clearly aware of what the agendas are of both sides adds a lot of value for me anyway. I mean, I try to stay up on what CAB is up to in the programs and what your policies are, but because of the bandwidth issue, I think that there's times when I'm just not as clear as I ought to be. And I think this has been helpful for closing that. Another thing I wanted to say is, even from 2 or 3 years ago, when CAB was formed separately from CSEC, I think that we always saw the CAB committee as being a policy-oriented committee more than an engagement committee, and to think of CSEC as an engagement arm of what we're trying to do in the town, and in the CAB to being more of an oversight, policy-centric organization. Maybe I'm wrong on that. What's your thinking on that?
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think that's, it's a similar conversation to what we've had, I think within CAB and even, Amanda and Jerry and I. So no, I don't think your perception there is incorrect. So that, as Amanda mentioned, there may be opportunity for some of the initiatives that we are working on at CAB right now, to work together to, drive the engagement around those.
I was just going to add that, the Amanda and Courtney and I, not too long ago, started a monthly meeting that the three of us would attend with just a general agenda of what's going on, how can we work together, and that led to this joint meeting. So I think that's an important element that we've added to the mix over the last year, as well as this. And I think maybe earlier, Courtney, you said that, we should probably do this a little more often, but not a lot more often because, of bandwidth. But my point here is that each of these things that we do together helps us get to know each other, helps us understand what we're each working on, and helps with the brainstorming of what we might do together. Where might we add value to what you're doing? Where, the things you're doing, how can that add value to us? So I think that should help the issue that Doug is bringing up of just trying to understand what CAB is up to and where you're headed.
Any more comments, ideas for other ways we might work together in the future that we haven't touched on?
This is maybe random, but I was just thinking of it. My husband works remotely, and they have these meetings called donut dates or something like that. You don't actually have to get donuts, but maybe it would be helpful. You could even do the same thing with CAB and CSEC members. They just get randomly assigned, and they have to meet up with one another, and they only meet for 15 minutes. And so it's not a whole hour commitment or 2-hour commitment to go to a.
Oh, I think we lost her for a moment. Hopefully she'll come back. I'm curious about this donut date. I think that's a good idea.
I like donuts.
Yeah, right. 15-minute quick donut. It sounds good.
Right.
All right. Well, hopefully she'll chime in again here.
Or maybe wine and cheese and crackers if it's in the evening.
There you go. There you go. I like that.
Well, you know what? Just in the with the idea of brainstorming. So last fall, I think Acton had a program sort of like our sustainability series, but I think it was one event per night for a week. One of the events that I thought was kind of interesting was just a social meetup. I think some members, said they're going to go to a bar or a brewery and invited the public to just come along. No particular agenda. Just come talk with the sustainability folks.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, we could do that, CAB and CSEC, or we could, invite the public, just come chat. open some more lines of communication. Brainstorming is probably better after a beer or two as well. So just a random brainstorm thought here.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
I like that too. And I think maybe we could have the name tags like, talk to me about my solar panels.
Yeah.
Tell me about solar panels.
That's cool. No, we should think on that. It mixes it up a bit, right? I think, I guess I immediately went to how often would it make sense to try to do one of these joint meetings? And I think this is good. And we covered a ton of information. But, maybe in reality, it's a couple times a year. But maybe we, intermingle one of these other more social type activities where we're both, doing outreach and getting, I think that's what we're experiencing is people aren't even aware that some of these boards and committees exist and that there's important work being done and that there's people behind it. How do we get more people interested in that? And Amanda's back, so I wanted to hear the end of donut dates here quickly.
Sorry. I think that happens at 8:20 every night. It happened to me at the select board meeting on Monday too. It's something with the Wi-Fi. I was just saying, it sounds like maybe you got there without me, but that CAB and CSEC members or CAB and other members of other committees could meet every once in a while. And it doesn't have to be more than a 15-minute talk. And it can be about personal stuff, just building relationships, but also committee related stuff.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't need to post agendas and have quorums, and you would get to know each other and discuss and have more of an informal way of meeting one another and communicating.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments about how, when you were new and just meeting these committees that are here, Amanda, ways that we might have a donut date with the new sustainability director to get, to a rhythm with them, because that's going to affect a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, in my notes to the new director, I'll leave some of this for whoever that is as well, but it was really helpful in the beginning for me to meet with all of the different departments and staff, especially as even though we are back in the offices, a lot of our meetings are still remote. So to be able to go to their office and meet them was really helpful. And it's been great to meet people one-on-one as well and discuss the different initiatives that people are doing. Sometimes the group setting, I would say, is good for the director because there's a lot of you. And if we meet with all of you for an hour a week, then we won't get to do anything that you want us to do. So sometimes the group is good for the director. But at the same time, to Jerry's point, if you're meeting with more people, then you get to hear more about what's going on, and then you can share all of those ideas collectively as well. And you may not as heavily rely on the director for all of those updates. So I think there's some tracking internally that could be improved, and we've talked about all of that before. But there are a lot of existing things, and I think you're all aware of them. The Library Sustainability Committee, there's a conservation coffee on Tuesdays monthly. There's a lot of other regularly scheduled things that you can go to and meet a lot of people quite quickly.
All right. Well, with that, just looking at the time, I want to make sure we give about 5 minutes or so for public question, comment. We still have a couple of public folks on the call still. Anybody have any questions? Pamela.
Hi, thanks for all you guys do. I'm really in favor of the awards idea because they're really cheap outreach marketing. There's so many people that have no idea. A neighbor came to me who wants to buy an electric car. is there a website that has all the different current EVs she could go to even? Couldn't find one. She doesn't.
ConcordDrivesElectric.com or .org.
Do what?
ConcordDrivesElectric.org.
Does it have a list of the current available electric cars?
Well, available as in production doesn't necessarily mean the dealership has it on their lot.
Right, but that would be good.
Different options. Yeah.
And
Because
if she reaches out to an EV support specialist, they often know what's on the lot, so she should contact them.
well, is that easy to find on the
Yep,
website?
all of that is on the ConcordDrivesElectric.org page.
Okay. And it's also the awards that will suck non-choir members in, I think. Even the we have Honored Citizen of Concord awards. I don't think you need to specify what they're on or anything, just awards.
Yeah.
And you could have public nominations and even public voting on them. That would get outsiders involved too, maybe. A quick question for Amanda. Do you have any knowledge of how the legislation that might allow us to require all electric new construction, if any of them are still living? Because if our home rule petition gets granted, will we be able to actually require that? Because there's a difference between zero carbon and net zero.
The home rule petition is still technically alive, and so are some other legislative avenues. After the legislative session, the update to the the specialized opt-in building code would be the other avenue that wouldn't be connected to the legislative session. And so it would be really important to pay attention to that one and advocate they had some public hearings in the spring. They're coming out with a more detailed revision, I think, any day now, sometime this summer, and we'll have public hearings again.
Because I think that's the thing we have to do the most for buildings, be able to require it. Once we're able to require it, then the builders will start doing it because it's better financially and, environmentally, if they just get to have to do it. And is there, can you guys, in talking about partnership with other committees in the town, I really think that the planning board really needs you to come up with some creative ways to incentivize all electric buildings and in zoning and like in the PRDs and rules and things, because I noticed there weren't any sustainability requirements at all in the Concord Depot proposal at town meeting. It's like the consultant they hired was all about windows and roof heights and nothing about sustainability or electric buildings. And if we don't get these things through the state, which let's hope for the best and prepare for the worst, we're going to need to incentivize builders to do it here. And that it's got to be in the planning department, the planning board, the ones that do the zoning requirements for the town. So.
No, good suggestions, Pamela, sorry. I think, I think it's a combination of groups. So planning board and, maybe through some of the other avenues that we've talked about. So thank you for bringing those to the table. Janet, did you have a?
One last thing, really go for the electric school buses because even the American Lung Association says this is just harming our children, diesel buses. The incidences of asthma and lower IQs.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I'm glad to hear there's a program that EPA has out for funding, because I know they're not inexpensive. So that's good that we can look into that.
And there's also, yeah,
Janet has her hand up. I'm just gonna give her a chance to.
I just
respond.
wanted to respond to Pamela, and you know, there are so many things that the CMLP does to support electric vehicles, and if you don't, I mean, you can contact me offline. I can tell you about them. So if anybody else asks you, I can.
Pamela, I
Great.
also just sent an email. So
But
you'll
there's a
have to-
drive and save wizard. There's the CMIP hires energy, BV specialists who advise you on what car you might want. I mean, there's a lot there.
Great, great. It sounds like Amanda just emailed you the website that you can tell your friend about. So, all right. With that, and given the time, I think we will move to adjourn.
Karen.
Oh,
Karen has
Karen,
her hand
sorry, Karen.
I just didn't want the meeting to end without thanking Jerry for his leadership of this past.
Oh,
year.
yes.
He's done a fabulous job, and I just didn't want it to go unsaid. That we really appreciated it.
Great work, Jerry.
Well, thank you.
Job well done.
But, given that I screwed up and didn't make the meeting on time tonight, I'm feeling rather chagrined. And I, in turn, want to thank Courtney for leading the meeting beautifully. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I guess before we end, Amanda, thank you for your service to the town, for your service to these two groups and leading us. We wish you the best of luck. We're sad to see you go, but hope for all the best for you.
Yeah, good luck.
All right. And with that, we will adjourn and plan to hopefully talk in the summer.
Karen has
Oh,
one more thing.
sorry.
So I think an important item, although we don't have to make a decision now, is when is our next meeting? But I think we'll send out a doodle poll and.
Yeah, so I
And figure
believe,
that out.
Amanda, you had sent out a poll and you hopefully have results on that we can, both you and I, Sharon, can draw from to see when we host our.
Not
next
everyone
meeting.
has taken it yet, so if you haven't, we know who you
Please
are.
do.
so Please
Her-
take it.
The link was in the recent email, I believe. So actually
how do
on
I-
the agenda, if you see a
Or
number.
if you emailed me, I took it for you. So you can also email me and I'll take the survey
you
for
go.
you.
There you go.
But how
That'd
do I
be really
get-
helpful for us.
But how do I get the results?
Hopefully Amanda can share those with us. Because I need them as well. So, all right. Anyone else? I'll pause for just a minute. Else? Okay. All right. I think we're good. All right. With that, thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you, Kev.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Amanda.
Bye.
Bye.
Good luck, Amanda.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Miss you.
Thank you. Good luck.